Hey everybody, I'm Joanna Roach. I'm the Executive Director of the Green Spa Network. I'm really excited to host our webinar today. We have with us Megan Leffler, who is our Marketing and Membership Manager. Say hi, Megan.
Hello, guys.
And we are really privileged to have with us the two partners of Swell Public Relations, who many of you likely know, and that's Kim Marshall and Darlene Fiske. So hi, Kim. Hi, Darlene.
Hi.
These webinar series are something that Green Spa Network is really offering as an educational benefit to our members. So for all of you out there, thanks very much for joining us today. And this is the first, no, this is the second. No, it's the third. It's the third of a series. So thanks a lot for joining us. And let me tell you a little bit about Swell Public Relations. So Darlene Fiske has had 20 years in public relations, marketing, branding, media. She's got a bunch of different clients. She's talented and dynamic and enthusiastic and a complete expert in all of this. And she's joined with Kim Marshall, who has 25 years of experience on the West Coast in marketing and public relations and working in some of the biggest hotels in the industry, and who has been a previous board member of Green Spa Network. So thanks for joining us, Kim and Darlene. And I'm going to let you gals take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe and Megan, for having us today.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to almost see you. I feel you, though. I know you're there.
Yeah, we know you're there. We know you're there. And we can see your chats, too. So keep those coming. So I'm going to share our screen with you. And so just bear with me for 1 second while we do this. And we've got a couple of slides to show you, and then at the end we'll open things up to Q&A if we'd like, and I know some of you already pre-sent in some questions, and Megan will help us out with some of those if we've got time at the end. So today what we're talking about is Kim and I's favorite topic, public relations, and we're questioning, is traditional PR outdated? A lot of our clients ask us this question. It's been talked about in our industry, of course. And so we're going to get to the bottom of it today and also help you figure out how to choose a content conductor for your wellness brand. If you think of a symphony, you need someone out there sort of creating the ebb and flow of your message and of your song. So we're going to kick this off with what are the musts in public relations. Kim and I like to think of ourselves too as reputation managers. Like, we're publicists, we're communicators, but ultimately for our clients, we're watching them in the public eye and how they're perceived in the public eye. And there are a million ways you can do that through social media, through press, through marketing, through sales, through online reviews, through awards, through speaking engagements. It's mind-blowing all of the ways that you can get in front of a consumer these days. And it's also changing every day with the onslaught of digital media and online websites and news programs and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about a lot of those things, but one thing you have to have is great content. Content is still king. You've heard this phrase before. Find your great story. Everybody has one. We are storytellers by nature. And people don't want to hear marketing speak. They want to hear, why really you're here and how you got started and the story behind the scenes. Another thing you cannot do without these days, if you're going to be successful in public relations and any marketing efforts, is you've got to have outstanding photography. And visuals also tell a story. Obviously, that's the case with the popularity of Instagram, where you can just share a photo. Everybody is time deprived and they want to see things quickly. So photographs have to sell it very fast, and they have to be very well done.
And let me butt in here. Back in the day when the spa industry was in its infancy, we have to say that photographs weren't something to be proud of often. So we can't emphasize enough that good lighting, focus, professionalism, it's all the difference. I mean, different social media channels, when you do a video, okay, it's very forgiving. But when you want something to represent your brand, the more professional, the better. I'm not saying fake, but clear, focused, and well lit.
Yeah, and not on your iPhone. I mean, honestly, if you've got any chance of getting a photograph into the New York Times, when they call and ask for your photo by the end of the day, you better have something really fabulous to send them, or you're not going to make the cut.
Yep.
And you also need someone to help craft and disseminate your brand story. We'll talk a little bit about that. Kim's going to talk about that. And social media and influencer collaborations these days are a must in your marketing mix, and PR has a big part of that. We help put together trips and experiences and match up and pair up influencers with our clients. And then most important, you get this great piece of press, like what are you going to do with it? So you get the story in the New York Times. Well, how will you share that with all of your customers that care about that? And, you know, be very proud of where you've been, because it's not just about when it hits, it's about how you use that to your benefit. So Kim, what works best?
Well, we really, this is all about business. You know, PR used to be considered a sort of fluffy thing that, you know, as long as you were like Julie on the Love Boat and you were friendly and liked people, maybe you could be a good PR person. But no, this is a business decision. So a professional must listen and hear and search out your business goals, and then build the strategy around those goals. And the end result is what the customer wants and keeping the customer happy. And really sales, right? Heads and beds for resorts, products sold for product companies. So we have to be very realistic that that's what we're doing this for. And anytime you start with a firm, you will have a download session, a brainstorming session typically, but we have trademarked one that we call a launchpad session. And this is really to distill and articulate your company's DNA. And then what happens, we do graphic posters where we draw what people are saying. We have an artist that actually does that. So everyone in the room can see that they're being heard, and they can see what's being said, because many people are visual learners. From that, you walk away with a roadmap for the next 6 months to a year, because we never want to hear our clients say, well, you know, we did PR, but it wasn't worth it. Maybe, I don't know. No, we want to be businesslike and have a task list that's very proactive and also reactive, because we don't know who's going to email us and ask for a strategic alliance or a promotion. So we do have to have a plan, and we do have to be at the ready to follow it. And typically this plan means that there's a focus, a theme for every month of activity, typically. And then, of course, quality content. That story has to be crafted, and it has to be done, should be done by a professional. And I used to be a journalist, and I used to say, don't bury the lead. In other words, maybe you told me 6 things that you are, but the 5th thing that you might have said quietly is really the most important. So you need a professional to help find out what your lead, the lead line of your story really is, because a professional will know what media look for, what sells with them, and what is news, because what you're trying to get is covered as news. And that means something that's new and different. And then, of course, you always want to create stories around the story. So I love watching Darlene get to know a client and go deep into, we work with blue spas, and it's so funny. We've known them for years, but in interviewing them to realize that their real story is a cowboy and a lawyer walked into a bar, and then what happened 30 years later. It was really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Except they didn't walk into a bar; they walked into a spa conference, which is even better. It's even
can be the same sometimes, right?
That's right. This is true. And 2, we talked about extending the life of media exposure. For example, one of our clients was just in the New York Times, and we thought, you know, how fun would it be for them to, on their social media and in a story, you know, they have a copy of the New York Times, they're opening it up, flipping it to their page, and then, you know, they zoom into the page or whatever when they get to their story. So it's those types of ways that, like, yes, you got this great piece of press and you're hoping your phones ring off the hook and you get tons of traffic to your website, but also it's how do you get really creative with showing people where you've been. Recently, I had the great fortune of going to the Skift Forum in New York, And Skift was created by a gentleman named Rafat Ali, and it's all about travel and trends and where the future of the travel industry is going. But one thing he said is that we're in an era of small brands with big stories to tell. And I thought this is so true. There's so many great small companies, independently owned entrepreneurs, also big businesses who are doing some really cool stuff and we all have a story to tell. So how do you get in front of people and stand out? Skift is one of the places, just as a sidebar, we got one of our clients in there in a story about how Austin is becoming the new wellness destination, and more people reached out to us and said, I saw the story in Skift, I thought you'd be interested, I saw it. And funny, I had to tell them all, I'm like, yeah, I pitched that story. And in fact, we had the writer who wrote the story go with us to the Global Wellness Summit this year, Laura Powell, and she's going to be reporting more on wellness because Skift has now launched a wellness vertical, which is very exciting. So tune into that and sign up for their newsletter because they're going to be talking about the business of wellness, and it's a space that you all need to be watching and contributing to as people in this industry.
Right.
And so, yeah. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I just think that, that's another reason to hire a professional, is that there's so much percolating in the communications world. And I have seen business owners go to me, I don't know what to read. I don't know what should we be doing? Which one of these? So it's great to have a team that is scanning the marketplace and understanding the shifts in the way communication is done. So, Darlene,
Kim, I was just going to say, we have a poll about, where people are consuming their news. You want to launch that?
Yes, I'd love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We'll wait a few seconds for you guys to just answer the question. Where do you guys get your news? TV, mobile, newspaper, social media. So we'll give them a few seconds.
I can't wait to see.
Oh, they're coming in. Social media is taking over.
Oh boy.
Big surprise. No, it's not.
All right,
Yeah.
one more second and we'll show the
Okay,
results.
I have a funny thing to say. This is while you're voting, okay? This is so embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you anyway because it's funny. I'm obsessed with the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders tryout show. Don't judge. And one of their jobs that they have to do, they have to speak very intelligently about, topics of the day. And so one of the girls in her faux interview was asked about the Me Too movement. And she didn't know what the Me Too movement was. And the coaches of that, or the leaders were like, well, where do you get your news? And she said, Instagram. So, social media is good for news delivery. You'll hear from us. It's one of the most popular ways that people do consume news. Instagram maybe is better for pictures. So she might want to switch over to Facebook because we're going to see here where we have social media at 53%, newspaper 13%, on your mobile device 27%, or digital and TV is 7%. Okay.
And I'll say honestly, I'm surprised that it isn't more mobile, because everyone I know gets alerts on their phone. I don't know if you do, and the first thing I do when I wake up, it's so sad, is I read the New York Times on my phone. And I read all the news alerts that come through that day. I see 13% for newspaper. That's encouraging, but that's probably mostly online. And TV, nowadays, TV is really sort of a place where people discuss the news they hear, as opposed to breaking news source. Our phones are typically breaking news source. So thank you for participating in this poll. And I see that someone said, computer at work, and someone else said, I use all four methods. Yes, we usually do, but what's the go-to where you find out about things first and most often? So the bottom line is we're all time deprived. So how do you get your message that may not be curing cancer, or maybe it is, or maybe it's a way to de-stress so you can face the barrage of news? How do you make your content stand out?
So this sort of goes along the lines of the poll that we just took, how we consume news. You can see on the far left, online is obviously the big winner here. Those first numbers include social media, and they're broken down by age. So by far, the younger set, 18 to 24, is getting most of their news online. You can take a look at this slide, take a screenshot of it if you'd like.
And you guys can do a personal poll. I mean, I have an 18-year-old. He never watches television unless I'm watching it. He always watches his phone. I mean, he takes polls, he gets updates, he knows what his friends are doing. It's all on that little teeny screen. And so that's a little, I feel bad for network news, but you know, Netflix is not going anywhere, just growing.
That's right. Another cool slide that we found is about advertising. And because where there are ad dollars, there will be editorial dollars. I mean, I can't, you know, Kim and I hear conversations all day. Our magazine, you know, doesn't have enough pages. My story was supposed to be 3 pages. Now it's 1 because they have been cut back by ad spends. And it's a reality. And here is the exciting news. Number 1 is advertising spend is going up. So more money is being spent to get the attention of the consumer. And you can see here that digital advertising, though, is slowly taking over traditional print. That's no big surprise. We are all online these days. It's slowly trending up. So we expect that to keep, you know, closing the gap, and we'll see what happens in the next 5 or 10 years. Another very exciting piece of news is that the total number of newsroom employees in the digital space is growing. So, you know, a lot of the print publication jobs may be going by the wayside. You know, an editor might be doing the job of 5 people these days. We hear that a lot. However, online is getting a lot of the staff and dedication and attention to reporting, which we think is great. Also, one of the slides that didn't make it onto our presentation today was about the PR industry and about how this job sector is very strong and has foreseeable growth in the next few years. So the PR world is one that's needed. Again, you have to sort of think of public relations in a much broader way than you have in the past, and more as storytellers and reputation managers and all of the other things that we've been doing for the past 10 years.
So this social media for news collecting, just going back to the other point first though, is I just got an email from a writer that said her new boss was going from Condé Nast Traveler as a digital editor to Travel Zoo. And Condé Nast, of course, Travelers is print, is a core product of print, but he was overseeing the digital side of it, and now he's gone to Travel Zoo, which is all digital. And I don't know if you've seen those numbers, but it's sort of mind-boggling when these sites have 30 million unique visitors a month. So once you get a hit on that, I very much encourage each of you to do Google Analytics and check and see the spikes. If you get a link to your site on a story, always check Google Analytics. It'll make you feel like, I'm glad I came to work today because all our efforts are paying off, but it's something not to be overlooked. And then social media for news collecting. Yes, just like you guys said, you get your news, but please don't forget that here, most consumers expect it to be inaccurate. So be aware. We've heard about, you know, the Russian infiltration and, you know, people messing with Facebook and things like that. Just be aware that that is why you always, and we'll hit on it later, but you always want to remember a good journalist, because they're trained to find an authentic story, to get the pros and the cons and present something that is a balanced opinion. That's what a true journalist is trained to do. So it isn't true journalism on social media. It's not true journalism. They can link to true journalistic stories, but it is really the community speaking. So be aware.
I find this stat so interesting too, that people, 57% think it's inaccurate. I mean, it also goes back to a question of trust. Like, what brands do people trust these days? And if there is this high of an antitrust factor online on social media, I mean, one of the strategies for you as brands would be to really develop that trust and show off your true self in ways that maybe you haven't thought of before. So anyway, that was just a surprising stat to both Kim and I.
The thing about where to be on social, I mean, what we talk about all the time is the reality of the numbers and the reality of the trend. And we all know that you know, Instagram is percolating right now. Everybody, it's fun and everybody likes it because it's quick and visual. But why does Facebook have more, even though people said, oh, that's for older people, or you can't trust Facebook anymore? It's because of the sheer numbers of the people on Facebook. And so the purpose, one of the purposes of this webinar is to give you guys the big picture, to show you that everything should be considered. There's not one path to success in your communications message. If there was, that's all we do. We'd save a lot of time. But for PR professionals, it's made our job harder because now we're more fragmented. We need to get our clients' messages. That pie is sliced up smaller and smaller, and you can't really, you know, forget parts of the pie. So we were saying, like in LinkedIn, you might not, you see that it's this number 6% you find out about news. But for me, finding out business news and what's moving the corporate world, that's like the 100% resource for me, because it's where you look for it's a segmented answer, right? I want to know business, then let's go. Reddit, you want to know an amalgamation of opinions, you go there. Snapchat, you want to know what my son is doing, you go there. Okay, that's a joke. But anyway, it isn't one answer.
And I'd say too, you know, LinkedIn is sort of a surprising area to be in. There's more and more. They have great analytics that you can check out. Kim and I were talking about this earlier, but I just got back from New York and was at the Condé Nast Traveler Reader's Choice Awards party because a client like Austin Spa Resort won #1 resort in Texas in the Midwest. And so I got to take a picture with the managing director of the resort and the editor-in-chief of Condé Nast, the new editor-in-chief. And they've had a lot of changes recently, and the publisher. And so we got this picture. I posted it on LinkedIn. I tagged them, and that picture has gotten over 7,000 views in the feed. And so I love that you can share this information with, you know, that we can share this information with our clients, but also think about the exposure. Like 7,000 people saw the name like Austin Spa Resort and knows that they're a top, you know, resort in the country. That's huge. That's powerful, and it's the right audience of business owners, decision makers, people who are maybe stressed and need a destination spa vacation. So sometimes publicity comes in other ways that are not quite expected, but that was a good one. And things like that happen all of the time on social media. So it's a lot of trial and effort and seeing what works. And a lot of my posts get 2 likes and, you know, no shares, and that's the way it goes. But every once in a while you'll hit on that great photo that sort of captures a behind the scenes moment and people really gravitate towards.
But also we have to remember that there are the stalkers on social media that never admit they're there. I took a trip to Africa this year, which was a dream come true. I didn't get many comments. I got the normal amount of comments on my picture posts, but the people who stop me at conferences and whatever and say, oh my God, I saw your trip. I'm like, you did? I didn't know you were looking. So never forget that there's a lot of people who won't admit that they're there and seeing it. So the numbers are the numbers, but there's also a ripple effect. And then this blog slide is about what we said. The numbers are there, but where is the trend going? And if you only have X amount of marketing dollars and time, should you spend that on blogs, on creating a blog? You know, if a tree falls in a forest, if there's 75 million blogs just on WordPress, how much time do people have to read them? And now that Google has changed their algorithms and figured it all out, the blog presence to help your search has certainly been altered. So the trend we found, the kernel trend in all this research, is that it's communities, it's native mobile. So it's specific interest groups getting together. That's what the stories are that are most successful right now. So think about it as you allocate your marketing dollars. And Darlene, did you want to say this story about one freelancer can change your life? The last one.
Yes, we're getting back. Let's get back to traditional media. You know, is it outdated? Where is it going? We feel it's very important to be part of that conversation, to talking to these professional journalists. There are many of them out there. There's the Society of American Travel Writers. There are conferences just for like very specific like for journalists and for writers, not just travel, but you know, freelancers in a variety of industries. And Kim and I wine and dine them in, you know.
I wine them, she dines them. No, I'm kidding.
Right, and she massages them. No, I'm kidding. And no, in a variety of ways. And that could be a phone call. That could be really literally taking them out to dinner. It could be taking them on a press trip to Italy, which we just did. It could be taking a group of journalists to one of our clients for a 3-day immersion in all things healthy eating, food, and or it could be, you know, sitting down one-on-one with the founder of a skincare line and talking about, you know, what makes their product unique. Desk side appointments. So we are very big believers in journalist relations and media relations. There will be a place for them one day. A lot of there's a place for them today. I mean, I've got one woman who came to a client of ours, and she's a freelancer and she's very good at what she does. And she's probably written more than, I can't even say, like at least more than 20, less than 50 stories about that client just through the years. But that's the power of creating these relationships and really finding these writers who can and will produce and love what they do. And there's a lot of, you know, different kinds of journalists out there, and influencers think that they are also journalists, and they definitely have a voice. And
we beg to differ, though.
Yeah, I'll let Kim talk about those.
The thing also to remember about journalists is that journalists research and observe, and influencers pose. So that isn't a put down, it's just a reality. I mean, influencers, I've got a lot in LA that are my buddies, and we do lots of things together. But here's the difference. I can't call a journalist and say, look, I'm going to get you dinner and a stay at a hotel. Would you please write your story exactly like this? But with an influencer, I can say, you know, here's where I want you to pose your picture, and do you mind putting this in your tagline? I can't do that with a journalist because they have to be unbiased. So an influencer is you can work with, and it's instantaneous. But we'll talk a lot about ROI in a little minute. But what you need to know about influencers is that this peer review is what is rising to the surface. If 88% of consumers trust that more than advertising, then we have to pay attention to it. And also, if millennials block ads, what's the use of spending money on it? So you've got to be able to juggle those two realities. And we also talk about micro and macro influencers. You know, if you paid Kim Kardashian $1 million to post something about your brand, that's a wide swath of the public that's going to see your brand. But if you have somebody with 50,000 followers, or even, you know, 7,000 followers, but it's more targeted to what you're selling, you might see a more specific ROI on that. So we love some of the examples we found, like Glossier. They react with their real followers. They reach out and see who's responding to what they're posting, and then they build a relationship with them. So they actually create micro influencers who are their most loyal customers. So if we could see the next slide. Look at that. Glossier says they built a beauty brand that's inspired by real life, and they call their customers their friends, and they want to know what their life is really like. So a flight attendant, career girls, these aren't models, these aren't, you know, famous people, but they're listening to their customer. So I will tell you that most people in the spa space right this minute aren't multinational Fortune 500 companies. Some are, but most aren't. So if you don't have the marketing budget that they might have, then can you think about building relationships with your customers, helping lift their profile and letting them give you feedback? Because many can be worked with. It's a lovely thing. We did a girlfriend's getaway to one of our hotel clients, and it was like Sex in the City weekend. And we worked with the influencer. We, you know, chose the other influencers she'd invite. We helped her decorate the space. And she brought other experts in to use the suite as a backdrop for her YouTube show. And she did stories in her online magazine about it. So there were so many layers to the wins to that event. Each one of the influencers posted whatever. So this is the opportunity you have with influencers. You can break it down and approach it as a project together, which is quite fun.
So this is an odd slide, isn't it? What is this paper bird doing up here? Well, I was watching Shark Tank the other night, and this company comes on, it's Love Pop, and they sell these beautiful 3D greeting cards and kiosks at different places, mostly in Boston. You may have seen similar ones. I feel like I've already seen their knockoffs, but these guys were the originals. The cards sell for about $13 to $15 each.
They're beautiful. I've seen them.
Are they so beautiful?
So beautiful.
So, you know, in this world of online cards, I mean, and, you know, text happy birthday messages and thank you notes via email and all of the ways that you communicate with people, how lovely would it be to send something like this to somebody that really is, it's more of like, it's a gift. But I'm showing you this because people want to feel something. They want to be moved. They want to be surprised. They want that tactile feeling of holding a card in their hands and opening something grand. And that could be a magazine. It could be a card. Regardless, the investors on Shark Tank jumped all over this and invested in the company because they also believe that this is coming down the line. Like, you know, people are online, but they also still yearn for feeling something, for opening something beautiful, whether it be a card or a magazine. And a lot of the magazines that we grew up with, The Shape and The Self and Condé Nast Traveler and Lucky Magazine and InStyle, some are still around, some are not. They're having to really reshape and reframe how they talk to their audiences because, again, like we said, there's so much information at your fingertips on the internet that you really, you know, the things that come to you in the mail had better really be speaking to you and your personal interests, or, you know, you don't have time to read all of this. So what we're noticing in the marketplace is the tried and true are still hanging in, Condé Nast Traveler and Allure, which both of those produce some amazing awards, which are important to clients. I would think it's important to your brand to stay on top of those best of lists and be recognized in that way. That's one of the things we specialize in. But you'll also see, and what we're seeing is a lot of niche publications. This Mantra Wellness is done by a woman, Miranda Pleasant, out of Austin, Texas. She also has another one called Thrive and Origins. So you've probably seen those. It's really, you know, cutting edge sort of wellness in a different way that she's speaking in her magazine, and we love what she's doing. J.W. Marriott just hired the former beauty director of Shape magazine to be the editor-in-chief of their hotel's magazine. So, you know, as the traditional print landscape changes, a lot of these editors are getting picked up by places like this, which is, you know, great for Kim and I because we've got all these relationships with people. And now, you know, we know someone who's editing this gorgeous book, which I hadn't really, you know, seen before. Now, Porter Magazine is netaporter.com. It's a shopping website. It's very high end. They create this beautiful book. It comes out 4 times a year. I subscribe to it. It's $25 per year, which is higher than, you know, all of the offers you get online for like, you know, 2 years for $12. This is the magazine. If you really want it, and you're going to read it and you're going to pay for it. But they do great profiles on like travel destinations and wellness trips and beauty products. This is one of my favorite magazines. It's based out of the UK, and it's very, you know, speaks to their customer. Goop, all of us know Goop. You know, it's becoming like the holy grail of, well, there's a big debate about that, and Kim talked about that at the Global Wellness Summit, but a lot of people like it, and including myself, and they have a new magazine, similar, 4 times a year. I believe it's $25, $30. I can't remember. I didn't care. I paid it. And that's content that is, you know, relatable. So it's so interesting that these places that were online only at first, like Net-a-Porter and Goop.com, are making the switch to print. So print is not dead. It's very much alive.
And just to add to that, you know, it was so funny. This theme is recurring, as you'll notice. It's community, 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 and special interests. So if you find the community, you can afford the print publication. I was asked by Susie Ellis to do the table breakout at GWS Italy called Goop, What About It? And I thought, who's going to be at my table? Like, can you trust it? Is it, you know, all this Kegel weights and jade eggs for your, you know, self? What's the feeling? And I thought, oh, what is even going to happen at my table? I cannot tell you how cool the women were that came to my table. One ran the organic pharmacy in London where Gwyneth shopped, and she's written about her in Goop, but she was the one that trained her early on clean products. Another one went to school with Gwyneth in New York at a private school. And then another one just lived in Italy, but always watches Goop. And another one does an app for mind body. But the way we talked about having a platform where girls like fried green tomatoes can talk about issues that they, you know, may want to say under their breath privately, who knew that just this little community would happen at a lunch table in Italy? So magnify that through the world when you build these communities.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you know, look at the last example I've used of a niche publication is Frame Jeans. Okay, what came first? Like a pair of jeans, and they've got a great website where you can buy the jeans. They've got brick and mortar stores. There's one in Dallas. I happen to buy a pair of Frame jeans. They're very expensive, which is the only way they could afford to make a magazine that's beautiful. But basically, it is like a catalog of their upcoming products. Then they profiled like 10 courageous women in the United States, and like they tell their stories, and they've got great photography. And you know, that's something I want to read. Like, they know their customer. They know what they're selling. They're selling me jeans, and they're also selling me inspiration. So the people who can pull that off right are the ones where, I mean, all of these places have opportunities for our clients to be in. So Kim and I are constantly on the lookout for new places to go. And this is definitely on our hot list of things to watch.
There's also, Darlene, there's also Magnolia, the one with Chip and Joanna Gaines.
That's right. If you go into Whole Foods and look on the racks there, I mean, it's mind-boggling,
right?
And exciting also. So, you know.
But we really wanted to really emphasize on this webinar that it's a big picture view to communications. And I was as surprised as the next person to find this research that says we looked up 2 ROI research firms, and it was the same years apart, 2014, 2018, 92% of all direct mail is opened, and the ROI rates you can see, catalogs and flyers, TV, press. So what they're saying is that when you get something print, it's tactile in your hand. Also, another fact they brought up was, if you do choose to buy a magazine, if you do, like at the salon, you sit there and read it, or you finally do subscribe to some, the reader considers that magazine their friend. And in fact, they want to see the ads because they're like, oh, how is Gucci doing that today? Or how is that shoe, you know, holding itself in that setup? And maybe can I learn from that in my business? And also, you're not distracted like you are on your mobile device. I don't know about you guys, but I have lots of windows open on my computer, and I'm looking at 4 things at once on my phone. It's disgusting. But when you sit with something print, like my favorite Vanity Fair, you know, usually you concentrate for at least 30 seconds. So anyway, just realize that these things are still viable. My neighbor sells radio ads, and he makes so much money. I'm like, is there anything to sell? But don't just assume that because social media or influencers are growing that everything else is dead. You know, we have to research it and we find it. Now, Megan, did we miss a poll that you wanted to do?
We have a poll for cost options, like percentage of your budget.
Okay, so I think we have one more. Yeah, cost options. Go ahead.
Let's see.
Let's do it.
Okay, so not sure if you panelists see it, but it's what percentage of your budget is allocated to marketing, advertising, PR, SEO. And it's ranging from less than 5% to over 50. So go ahead and put your votes in and we'll.
And can you call me if yours is over 50? Darlene, we could put that next slide up, I think.
All right.
I hope you guys are finding this interesting. We put that poll up, but we didn't. And we look forward to your questions. We only have one more slide after this, and then we will take your question.
Okay, gonna end the poll now.
Less than 5%, 5 to 10%. Well, good. That's as it should be.
Surprising. Yeah, it's as it should be.
That's as it should be. Some people have said that the overall marketing could go to 20 for when venture capitalists work, but that's also employee salaries and that sort of thing. So that 10% is really where it should be. Notoriously, through my experience in the spa and wellness space, smaller companies have rarely budgeted for much marketing. And they'll often say, well, I have an email list, or I have a social media page. But, as we grow as a company, we have to look at it more professionally and say, what's the reality of getting my message out the right way? And so what we've seen on other PR firms too, is that it's typically monthly retainers. And those retainers can range from, you can get them very, very low. And some people say, oh, can we pay you $2,000 a month? But that's really what a college grad or intern would get. And so from 6 to 20 is what is really happening now in the marketplace. And project work is something to think about if you're a small business. Because what we always tell people is, if you do it for 6 months to a year is really smart. You get the train on the right track. And often if you set up your story correctly and launch it, it's like the formative years of a child. If you do that right, hopefully they grow up to be healthy. So if you put your brand on the right track and tell the true, authentic story, you can ride that train for a long time with updates, of course. So it's about $375 an hour to get creative brainstorming, planning, strategic input from a professional, a senior professional. And that's why the monthly retainers are so smart, because typically there won't be a timer. It's not like a lawyer where the timer's up there on the wall and it's like, oh, that's $350 an hour. No, a monthly retainer is really the most affordable way to go. But also for those who just want to bite and sort of to run by ideas, consultation calls by Zoom are also available. So that cuts down transportation costs and all.
So to recap everything, traditional versus online versus social media versus what's coming next. I mean, who knows what the next big thing is going to be. Traditional PR is not dead. It's changing. It's morphing. You've got to be part of the conversation wherever those may be taking place, which is everywhere. And we've gone over how you find the best content conductor for your symphony. And you've got to decide, do you try to do it yourself or work with a PR agency? And we've hopefully given you a couple of tips here that can help you if you do want to do it on your own. If you are looking for an agency, bigger is not always better. Kim and I have both worked with very large advertising and PR agencies, and they have their great points and they have their not great points. And you could say that about anybody actually in the whole world. But when you're talking specifically about a certain field like food or, travel or wellness, you really want people who are experienced in that line of work. And you also want an agency with a network of specialists and people that, dive deep, who are multitaskers, results driven, and part of your team. I mean, we are that for our clients. They are sometimes like family. They stay with us a long time. They can't get rid of us, and we like it that way.
But, you have to think of it that when you're looking for an agency, you need to, of course, have this same vibe, get along, and believe in them. But also, it's like dating. You don't know until you really date them for a while. So it's a chemistry thing too. But we really and truly personally want to be viewed as a branch of your company. We want to be the branch office for your communications. We also don't charge extra to be that run it by us, so that we make sure that the brand message is true. Because once a story is crafted, you can't have broken up bits that don't match. So that's why that symphony conductor is so great, because everything comes home and you make everything harmonize before it goes out to the public. It's essential. It's essential. And also the visual look of something. It has to harmonize or it looks like a different company. Remember, people have ADHD so bad, and they're being smashed with 1,000 different companies. So unless there's uniformity and dependability, they want to find you, but they just want to make sure it's really you. So a professional will help you keep all those bunnies in the corral. So I think it's time for the question.
Yes.
Perfect.
Sorry,
So,
Megan, take it away.
yeah, feel free to type your questions in the sidebar of your screen, the right side. But we did have some questions that were submitted before the call. So let's get to them. I don't want to repeat anything that you went over, but what's your best advice for B2B brands? Kind of very general, but if you could give one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, my first advice would be for B2B to really be known in your space, of course. So that's by elevating your presence at industry events and being very clear about who you are, not just another X. So remember, do you have for your company, B2B, a 30-second soundbite? Who are you and why are you different from the company that's your competitor? That's my advice. Be specific about who you are in the industry.
Good. Switching over to social. So is Instagram or any other social media still vital if you have like one good following in, like, say, Facebook? If you're doing really well on Facebook, do you need to pay attention to the other channels?
Darlene, what do you think?
Sure, yeah. I was going to ask, should I stop sharing the screen so you can see faces, or are we good? Like, what do you want to see? You just leave it up? Leave this up?
Yeah, we can have your
okay. I guess it really depends on which social media platform you're talking about, because a lot of my experience in the past, some clients have not wanted to get on Twitter for fear that they're going to get complaints like, oh my God, there's a roach in my room at blah, blah, blah hotel. And then what do? Like, the whole world sees it, and if they set up this system of being so reactive so quickly, then you really almost have to have someone manning Twitter like 24/7. So, I'd say Instagram, you have to be on. I mean, again, it sort of depends on what your business is. If you're a B2B and maybe it doesn't make sense for you to be in all of the areas, but if you're B2C, you absolutely have to be on Instagram. I'd say you've got to be on Facebook. I mean, that's where people are every day. Facebook is sort of the catch-all. It's like, I can see pictures of my grandkids. I can see what my best friend's doing. I can get the news. I can, I can watch a video that somebody shares. It's everything. It's all of it. It's photos, videos, it's news, it's junk, it's status updates. But you have to, it's so big, as Kim said, and the advertising that you're able to do and really pinpoint people is so strong on Facebook that, yeah, you have to, I'd say that you don't want to neglect those two big ones.
Also, just something that struck me is one of our clients did a social media audit, which I would encourage everybody to invest in if they could, because from a professional audit, you'll find out where your customers are hanging out. So you can allocate more energy in that direction. So it depends on if you're a hotel, if you're a product company, because you don't want to be striving after the wind. You can't be everywhere. I don't know any company that isn't Fortune 500 and doesn't have an army battalion of employees that is on every channel and doing every channel well. So we say, rule of thumb, pick 2. But before you do pick your 2, try to get an audit so that you know where your people lie, so that you can sing out of the right songbook.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one popped up here. when you do hire a PR firm, are you hiring also the photographers and videographers to get the images, or do the businesses need to budget that separately?
You need to budget that separately. And
Sorry, guys.
yeah, no, it's very expensive, and it's more expensive than PR if you get the right person than a monthly retainer. So you're going to spend money on that, but you're going to use it forever, and you want to be that winning picture that gets in the story. I'll tell you, when I used to work with Mohawk Mountain House, they would get the photo every single time. If there was a roundup of 10 places, they would get the photo and at the very top of the page. It was embarrassing almost. I felt bad for the other properties included in the stories because like they would never get any coverage because the photograph was so perfect. So you've got to spend money on that, and unfortunately it's not covered, but your PR team can recommend great photographers and also can help be on site for photo shoots if needed. We do that. We have a strong opinion on the way things should look and what you should photograph and what the media and press want and what customers want. So we're part of the team, but it is an additional expense.
And you can find a firm that has that all encompassed in. That's rare, but you're going to pay also a markup for that. So the smartest way to approach that would be to use your firm as one of the, you could say panel of decision makers on who you hire. Prices range. And also we have people we work with over the years that we know their style. We just had a sad situation with a hotel client that they hired an interior photographer without running it by us. And the pictures are all hot and blown out. Like every time there's a window in the room, it's like white light from ET coming in the window. Mm-hmm. So we could have saved them that, that's why we're here and we've done this. But anyway, just know that your PR firm should be part of that team and help save you money and cut through the clutter. I see this Tenzin Onsen Hot Springs. I love hot springs. So what are you asking on this question?
How early should they start promoting their newer spa venue on social media?
Well,
it sounds like
it takes a while to grab someone's attention, right? It takes about, in our estimation, like 90 days to really have people go, oh. In the old ad world, it used to say in print you'd need 3 ads to just make an impact. It isn't the first time, it's the second time, it's the third time, right? And they used to measure that. So I would say 90 days out to build anticipation is a good rule of thumb. You could start earlier, but then people are like, yeah, stop talking about it, you're not open yet. So you want to build anticipation, and there's lots of fun ways to do that with teasers, with snippets, remember how the car companies used to just show, wheels driving down a road, and then, each ad had more revealed. So yeah, I would say 90 days is a nice rule of thumb.
All right. Maybe one of the last questions, and we'll probably wrap it up after this. I have an event and I contracted a PR company, local, they're tackling the work, but I feel their communication is lacking. What would be your tips to settle effective communication to ensure my results are okay?
I'm not sure what that means.
The communications between the PR firm and the client, is that how you understand it, Megan?
I was taking it as, okay, between PR firm and client.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
that's a great question.
I think, first of all, I think that's sad. I can't imagine, I'm the one trying to pull information from our clients, and Kim feels the same way. It's like, have you heard from some of them? It's like, no, I haven't heard from them. Let's, keep calling. So we call and email. And so I guess that what I would do, go back to your list of deliverables and make sure that they are staying on track with what you signed on in your proposal or contract, and maybe invite them, if they're not holding up their end of the bargain, ask to schedule a weekly call or bi-weekly call, depending on how long if your launch is only 2 months, maybe you need a week, or if it's a retainer, you don't need a weekly call, you need something else, but a year. So just depending on how long you're using them for, set up a time where everybody has to be present, and ask them to be present for that.
Yeah, we've had with clients successfully, every 2 weeks we've had calls. Feedback on their decisions. Yeah, so if you have a call every 2 weeks and you go over the point, I used to have a boss that would say to me all the time, what else? What else? What are we forgetting? And, you know, it made me stop and think, and we would dive deeper. So you as the client, you know, you could say, what are we forgetting? What's it like on your side? What are you going through right now? What are your biggest obstacles to getting this done? And in my estimation with an event, it's all hands on deck. If they're hitting a wall about something and you could help them, help them. It's the end result that you're looking for, right? So communication is like any relationship, like a girlfriend, a husband, a child, it's communication. So make sure that you talk a 4-month contract. You know, you could talk certainly every 2 weeks, but as it gets closer, every week. And you can send them to 30 minutes and don't wander and have an agenda. But this way, because sometimes a lot of PR work is on the back end. It's building, reaching out, trying to get someone to respond. And you think they're not doing anything. You think they just promised you all this and they're not doing anything. But actually, they're chipping away at the mountain of communications that these decision makers and influencers are getting each day. So give them a little time to, you know, get from A to B. But it's fine to ask where they are and how you can help them get there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so very, very much. This has really been great. I think you guys have really shared some amazing information. The slides were great. And of course, your sparkling personality. You know, I really want to say that for all of our listeners, you know, Kim and Darlene are a great swell, is a great firm to hire. So if you have questions or if you're interested in working with them, please reach out to them directly, and they'll be happy to chat with you and talk to you more about what it is that they're doing.
Isn't that sweet?
Thank you, Joe. That's very
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We love doing it. It's always good to learn and to share what we learn.
Yeah, and you guys are amazing partners for the Green Spa Network, and thank you so much for doing this for us today.
We'll be seeing you at the Buyers Conference, guys.
Yes.
Yay!
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.